హలో హాయ్ ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఇప్పుడు నేను చెప్పబోయేది టాపర్ గురించి. టాపర్ ఇక్కడ ఉంది చూడండి. దీంట్లో మై స్కూల్ బోర్డ్ ఈజ్ మనం దీంట్లో నాదేమో తెలంగాణ స్టేట్ సిలబస్ అండి. దీంట్లో సిబిఎస్ఈ ఉంటుంది, ఐసిఎస్ఈ ఉంటుంది, మహారాష్ట్ర స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, ఆంధ్రప్రదేశ్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, తెలంగాణ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, కర్ణాటక స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, తమిళనాడు స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, రాజస్థాన్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, హర్యానా స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, గుజరాత్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, కేరళ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, మధ్యప్రదేశ్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, పంజాబ్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, ఉత్తరప్రదేశ్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, ఛత్తీస్గఢ్ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్, ఐజిఎస్సి అదర్స్ ఉంటుంది. నాదేమో తెలంగాణ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్. చూడండి, తెలంగాణ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్ సెలెక్ట్ చేస్తున్నా. చూడండి, దీంట్లో ఏమేమి సబ్జెక్ట్స్ ఉంటాయంటే బయాలజీ ఉంటుంది, కెమిస్ట్రీ ఉంటుంది, ఇంగ్లీష్ ఉంటుంది, మ్యాథ్స్ ఉంటుంది ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఐఎమ్ ప్రిపేరింగ్ ఫర్ ఎగ్జామ్స్ అంటే నేను ఏమి ప్రిపేర్ కావాలనుకుంటా అంటే ఫ్యూచర్ ఎగ్జామ్స్, ఐఎంఓ, ఎన్టీఎస్సి, ఎన్ఎస్ఓ, ఐజీకేఓ నేను నెక్స్ట్ ఒత్తుతున్నా అనమాట. జాయిన్ దిస్ కోర్స్ అని ఒత్తాలన్నమాట. లోడింగ్ అవుతుందన్నమాట. క్యాల్కులేటింగ్ యువర్ ప్రోగ్రెస్. ఇప్పుడు తెలంగాణ స్టేట్ బోర్డ్ వచ్చిందనమాట. చూడండి, లర్న్ అని ఒత్తాలి అనమాట. చూడండి, ఫిజిక్స్, కెమిస్ట్రీ, మ్యాథ్స్, బయాలజీ, ఇంగ్లీష్, సోషల్ ఉంటుంది. నేను ఇప్పుడు ఫిజిక్స్ చూపించబోతున్నా. ఫిజిక్స్ ఫస్ట్ లెసన్, రిఫ్లెక్షన్ ఆఫ్ లైట్ ఎట్ కర్వ్డ్ సర్ఫేస్.
Hello students. In this session we will discuss about spherical mirror as well as about its types. So what is spherical mirror? We already know about the plane mirror, right? Plane surface, silvered at one side, so when the light hits on that particular shining surface, it reflects back. Now if the reflecting body or the reflecting surface is a part of sphere, then that particular mirror we call spherical mirror, right? A reflecting surface, we can write a reflecting surface which is a reflecting surface which is part of a sphere is called spherical mirror, right? Actually the spherical mirror is made up of hollow glass sphere, right, by polishing at one of its surface. For example, let us say this is a hollow glass sphere, right? Now just say if we cut a part out of it, right, so this part will look like this, right? Similarly, if I take out another part of it, so this part will look like this. So what we can do, we can silver this surface also, we can silver out this surface of the glass sphere, or we can surface the inward surface of the glass sphere, right? Now see, depending upon which surface, which side is silvered, we can classify spherical mirror into two types, right? So I can say depending upon the
హలో హాయ్ ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఇప్పుడు నేను టాపర్స్ గురించి చెప్పాను కదా. ఫిజిక్స్ ఫస్ట్ చాప్టర్ అంటే ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ చూపించాను కదా, అది మీకు చాలా ఉపయోగపడుతుంది. టాపర్ అనేది చాలా మంచిగా ఉపయోగపడుతుంది, చాలా మంచిగా చెప్తారు, ఎన్నిసార్లు అయినా వినొచ్చు. ఇప్పుడు నేను కెమిస్ట్రీ చూపించబోతున్నా. ఫస్ట్ లెసన్ ఓన్లీ ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ చూపించబోతున్నా, కానీ చాలా చూపించలేను ఫ్రెండ్స్.
So students, now that we know what are physical changes and what are chemical changes, let's see what are the characteristics of these changes now. Okay, when we talk about a physical change, it is generally temporary, that we've already seen. If we take water, it changes to ice. Ice can go back to water. So generally we say that physical changes are temporary changes. But what about chemical changes? Okay, if you take milk, it changes to curd. Now you cannot get the milk back from curd, so it's a complete permanent change. So we say chemical changes are generally permanent. Okay, in physical changes, you will not find a new substance forming. For example, water when changes to ice and ice when comes back to water, in either of the changes, H2O will remain H2O, whether it is water or whether it is ice. But in case of chemical changes, when milk changes to curd, milk is having lactose in it, and lactose changes to lactic acid when milk changes to curd. So curd has lactic acid, so that means a new substance is formed there. The original substance has completely changed itself. So we can say that in physical changes, no new substance formed, whereas in a chemical change, you will always find a new substance forming. Alright. Now, let's talk about whether there is a change in mass of the original substance when it undergoes a physical or a chemical change. For example, water when changes to ice. The mass of water and mass of ice will be same, but their volume can be different. Volume of water will be less as compared to volume of ice, and both being the same mass. Okay, so we say that in a physical change, the mass of the original substance does not change. Okay, mass of the substance does not change. Okay, but whereas in chemical changes, the original substances that we take, they convert into completely new substance. So the total mass of original substances and new substances will be equal, but individually if you see the original substance and the new substances formed, their mass will differ. For example, if we have, suppose, copper sulfate, CuSO4, it reacts with zinc and forms zinc sulfate and copper. So copper sulfate gets converted into copper and zinc sulfate gets converted into zinc. So if mass of copper sulfate is X, the mass of copper will be Y. And if mass of zinc is Y, zinc sulfate's mass will be X. So in either ways, the total mass of original substances and the new substances formed will be equal. But individually if you see, the mass will differ. So we say in chemical changes, respective masses of substances may increase or decrease. Now in case of a physical change, you will not usually find that energy is changing. When water converts to ice or ice converts back to water, you will not find that much of energy change. Yes, there will be change in temperature. Water will be in the liquid state at more temperature and ice will be in the solid state at less temperature. That means heat energy in both of them will differ. But this energy change will not be to a greater extent. And sometimes in physical changes, there will be no energy change also. Alright, so physical changes are generally not accompanied by energy change, or even if there is energy change, it's going to be in small amount. But in
కెమిస్ట్రీ ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ అయిపోయింది కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఇప్పుడు మ్యాథ్స్ ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ చూద్దాం ఫ్రెండ్స్. రియల్ నెంబర్స్ ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఇప్పుడు ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ ఏంటిదంటే ఫ్రెండ్స్, యూక్లిడ్స్ డివిజన్ ఆల్గరిథం.
We know how to divide two numbers, right? For instance, 5 by 4. 5 can be divided by 4 using the standard division format as shown, which we already know. We know how to verify this division as well. We should get the dividend by multiplying the divisor with the quotient and adding the remainder. In general, the division of A by B can be verified by checking if A is equal to B into Q plus R, where A is the dividend, B is the divisor, Q is the quotient and R is the remainder. But note that this remainder R should be less than the divisor B. This equation is called Euclid's division lemma. The Euclid's lemma states that for given positive integers A and B, there exist unique integers Q and R satisfying equation A equal to B, Q plus R, where R is greater than or equal to 0 and less than the divisor B. Euclid's division lemma helps us to find HCF of the given numbers. This technique of finding HCF of two numbers using Euclid's division lemma is called Euclid's division algorithm. Let us see this by considering an example. Find the HCF of 100 and 86. To find the HCF of the given numbers, divide the greater number of the two by the smaller number as shown. In this case, 100 is the dividend and 86 is the divisor. Apply the division lemma. We get the equation 100 is equal to 86 times 1 plus 14 as shown. Now take 86 as our new dividend and 14 as the divisor. On division, we get the remainder 2. Using the division lemma, we can write 86 is equal to 14 into 6 plus 2. Now with 2 as the new divisor, 14 as the new dividend, the remainder is 0. So 2 is the HCF of 100 and 86. So what could be the logic behind this? How is this working? It is because the HCF of 100 and 86 is equal to HCF of 86 and 14. And again, HCF of 86 and 14 is equal to HCF of 14 and 2, which is 2. And so HCF of 100 and 86 is 2. In general, we can say that if A is equal to BQ plus R, then HCF of A and B is equal to HCF of B and R. Let us now discuss the general procedure to find HCF of any positive integers, say A and B, where A is greater than B. Using Euclid's division lemma, we can write A is equal to BQ plus R, where R is greater than or equal to 0 and less than B. If the value of R is 0, then B is the HCF of A and B. If the value of R is non-zero, apply the division lemma to B and R. Continue the process till the remainder is 0. The divisor where the remainder is 0 will be the HCF. The process is shown here as a simple flowchart for you to remember easily. Step 1. Consider two positive integers and apply the division lemma. Step 2. Check if R is 0. If yes, B is HCF of A and B. If no, replace the value of A with B and the value of B with R. Then repeat the whole process until we reach this step where R is 0. The divisor at this step will be the HCF. Let's quickly recap what we have learned in this session. We have recalled Euclid's division lemma and we learned the process of finding the HCF of two positive integers using Euclid's division algorithm. That's all for now. I'll see you in the next session. Till then, keep learning.
హలో ఫ్రెండ్స్, చూసారు కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఇప్పుడు మ్యాథ్స్. ఇప్పుడు బయాలజీకి వెళ్దాం ఫ్రెండ్స్. న్యూట్రిషన్ ఫుడ్ సప్లయింగ్ సిస్టమ్, మోడ్స్ ఆఫ్ న్యూట్రిషన్ చూడండి ఫ్రెండ్స్.
Hello kids, welcome to class. In this session, we will talk about mode of nutrition in plants. There are two modes of nutrition in plant. One is autotrophic mode of nutrition. mode of nutrition. As the name suggests, auto means self and hetero means non-self. That means autotrophic mode of nutrition, here the plants will be able to synthesize their own food, while in case of heterotrophs, they will be dependent on other plant, insect or dead organic matter in order to fulfill their requirement of nutrition. So, there are two modes of nutrition, one is autotrophic mode of nutrition and another one is the heterotrophic mode of nutrition. The plants which carry out autotrophic mode of nutrition will be termed as autotrophs, and the plants which carry out heterotrophic mode of nutrition will be termed as heterotrophs. Now, the plants are able to synthesize their own food by the process of photosynthesis, and photo means light and synthesis means to make. In the presence of the light, the plant is able to synthesize their own food. Actually, what is happening in the process of photosynthesis? The radiant energy is converted into the chemical energy. That means from inorganic substances, water and CO2 combine together in the presence of the green pigment, that is chlorophyll and sunlight. The plants are able to make their own food, that is glucose, and during this process oxygen is liberated as byproduct. So, what is photosynthesis? A photosynthesis is a process in which the inorganic substances are converted into organic substances in the green pigment of the plant by utilizing energy from sunlight. So, a process where radiant energy is converted. Enzyme. These enzymes are proteolytic enzyme which will digest the protein, and the digested protein substances will be absorbed by the leaves. After digestion is over, these tentacles will return back to their straight position again. So, in this session we talk about insectivorous plant, sundew or Drosera, growing in a marshy area. The adaptations are present in the leaves. The leaves contain numerous hair-like structures which are termed as tentacle. At the tip, there is a gland which secretes sticky fluid. This sticky fluid shines in the presence of sunlight, and now that is called as honeydew plant because it appears like a dewdrop. It attracts insects. As soon as insects sit on this dewdrop, what will happen? The tentacles will move inside and the insect will be trapped. It will be digested by the various proteolytic enzymes present in the sticky fluid secreted by gland, and then it will return back after digestion is over. So, in this session we talk about modes of nutrition. We saw two modes of nutrition, autotrophic mode. In that we saw a peculiar example, epiphytic root, that is the aerial root and clinging root of Vanda. Then we talk about heterotrophic mode of nutrition where we saw three examples. Parasitic plants, total parasite Cuscuta, partial parasite Viscum. We talk about saprophytic plant, the saprophytic plant Monotropa. Then we talk about insectivorous plant and insectivorous plant in which we saw example sundew. I hope you understood. Thank you.
Hello students.
ఫ్రెండ్స్ చూసారు కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్, ఇప్పుడు బయాలజీ ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్. ఇక్కడ మీరు అంటే సెకండ్ టాపిక్కి కూడా వెళ్ళచ్చు, సెకండ్ థర్డ్ ఫోర్త్ ఫిఫ్త్ ఇట్లా వెళ్ళచ్చు. కింద స్క్రోలింగ్ చేసుకొని మనకి ఏది కావాలంటే అది చూసుకోవచ్చు ఫ్రెండ్స్. అలాగే ఇప్పుడు ఇంగ్లీష్ చూపించబోతున్నా. రీడింగ్ కాంప్రహెన్షన్. ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ గ్యాదరింగ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్. చూడండి ఫ్రెండ్స్.
Hi there. So in this video, we'll be taking a look at how we deal with questions on reading comprehensions. So whenever you're given a passage or a text, you might have come across questions that ask you to find out some information that's included or given in the text. For instance, if you have, let's say, a poem about a statue, and it's given in the passage that the statue was a very big statue, it was a very magnificent statue, and that it was made of gold. So one of the questions that he could be asked could be something like, what was a statue made of? So for these questions, you need to look back at the passage and then see if you have the information that you require. Now obviously there has to be some technique, some strategy we can use to figure out how to answer these questions. It's simple. The rules are clear and straightforward. Just make sure you remember them. Number one, read the whole text, please. And this is really important because a lot of times students think that you can simply look at a question and without reading the entire text or the entire passage, you can still figure out the answers. Because it seems easy, right? That if the question is asking you for information that's already in the text, then it should have common words. This is a very big mistake. This is called cherry picking. Don't do that. Just because a question has a certain word, let's say, imagine that the question is, who was, let's say, Babur? Right? Imagine this is the question and the passage is about something like, Babur was an old man who lived somewhere in the mountains or whatever. So here, just because I have the word Babur doesn't mean that every single sentence that has the word Babur is going to be my answer. Now it could confuse you. Just because the first sentence that you read has Babur in it and the question has Babur, I assume that this is the answer to my question. That's wrong. You need to read the entire passage before you attempt to answer the questions. Now this is one particular strategy you could adopt to answer these kinds of questions that ask you for information that's given in the passage. There's another technique we'll be looking at a little later. But just remember, don't get into the habit of just looking at a particular word in the question and thinking, oh, this is where the word is, so that ought to be the answer. No. It's best to first read through at least the entire paragraph where you think the answer might be. The best way to do it would be to read the entire passage and to read it actively. This is really important. When I say that you need to read actively, what I mean is you're not just reading for your entertainment, right? When you're sitting in your classroom and you're studying something, you're studying the text in front of you. You're studying with an eye for certain things that you need to look out for. What are these certain things that you need to keep in your mind when you read? Number one, you need to take notes. What this means is that as you read, mentally you have to figure out what kinds of things the author is trying to tell you. You have to try to understand what the important points are and maybe perhaps take a pencil or a highlighter and just mark them out. If you think as you read that this line is really important, then you need to mark it out. Now this is important because it might help you later when you're trying to answer the questions that ask you for important information in the text, right? So how do you know which points are important? Number one, they could be points or sentences that seem to summarize the entire paragraph or seem to summarize some particular lines. So these sentences that we have are called topic sentences. They basically summarize the entire paragraph, right? So every paragraph has one topic sentence. Usually it comes at the beginning of the paragraph, but it could come in the middle or even at the end. But look out for those topic sentences because they can actually help you figure out what the entire paragraph is about, and those would usually give you some important information. And similarly, you could have certain examples in your text, so those examples might be important as well. Then what do you do next? You need to read and then figure out what the main idea of the passage is. Why is this important? It's because only when you understand what the entire passage is trying to say, what it's trying to convey, what is the purpose of the author writing. By looking at the questions first, you mentally prepare yourself for what you need to look out for when you read the passage.
చూసారు కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్, గ్యాదరింగ్ ఇన్ఫర్మేషన్ టాపిక్ ఇప్పుడు చూడండి, సోషల్ చూడండి. సోషల్ ఫస్ట్ చాప్టర్, ద వరల్డ్ డ్యూరింగ్ ద వరల్డ్ వార్. ఫస్ట్ టాపిక్ ఏంటిదంటే ఫ్రెండ్స్, ద నేచర్ ఆఫ్ ఇంపెరలిజం.
Hello everyone, welcome to the chapter Global Independence Movements. In this chapter, we will discuss the huge amount of independence movements that arose in several parts of Asia and Africa after the World War II. But what was this independence movement about? It was against imperialism. So in this video, we will understand what exactly is the nature of imperialism. What were the conditions of this imperial age? Are the claims of repression and exploitation that sparked independence movements justified? Or was it a period of national and societal development that might not otherwise have occurred in the colonies? As the case is always, the picture was not so straight and simple but complex and mixed. One reason for the same was that facts were not always easy to determine. Colonial administrators tended to discourage outside observers, and stories that did reach other capitals were at times colored by the advocates of independence. For example, reports of the Black Hole of Calcutta, in which 146 British men, women, and children allegedly died of heat and suffocation in the locked cell of an Indian prison, were later determined to have been exaggerated. Nations that emerged into the third world of the 20th century varied widely in size, resources, history, and forms of colonial rule. Each colonial power applied its own style of rule to the territories. These different styles later reflected in the character, stability, and outlook of independent nations that emerged. The legacy of imperialism was not all negative. Infrastructures were created and improved, education and literacy increased in many colonies. The introduction of world languages such as English, French, and Spanish provided communication with the rest of the world. Modern governmental procedures were introduced. However, the enduring impression of imperial rule among the political elite of the colonies was ultimately negative. Why? Because the colonial powers wanted to maintain control. The objectives of imperial rule varied from the exploitation of resources to national prestige to markets to settlement. But whatever the colonial motive was, the imperial power always sought to maintain unchallenged control. The viceroys and governors were often delegated with virtually supreme authority, especially in earlier years when the distance and poor communications made such a delegation necessary. In Spanish Manila, for example, the Governor General was so powerful that he was often likened to an independent monarch. He dominated the High Court, was Captain General of the Armed Forces, and enjoyed the privilege of engaging in commerce for private profit. Colonial authorities had the discretion to decide between direct rule or indirect rule through local potentates. At the beginning, arrangements for trade and facilities were frequently made through treaties with local rulers. In many cases, these arrangements continued for many years. In others, the colonial power became impatient with the restriction of such treaties, abruptly repealed them, and assumed full power. In India, during British times, a portion of the subcontinent was under the rule of princes who made treaty agreements with the government of India. The remainder of the territory was directly under the viceroy. In Indonesia, the Dutch gave prominence to traditional sultans, but such rulers were little more than surrogates of the Dutch resident. They exercised petty power, often at the expense of the people of the region. In sub-Saharan Africa, the French built an empire on education, a professional civil service, a military presence, close financial ties, and the creation of a French-speaking elite. The capacity to speak French was a greater key to prestige than race. The openness of French universities to Africans helped create the elite that subsequently persevered French ties in the period of independence. The French were aided in the creation of the elite by their approach of assimilation. French colonists could be as arrogant as others.
చూసారు కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్, ఎవ్రీ ఎవ్రీ టాపిక్కి రీక్యాప్ ఉంటుంది ఫ్రెండ్స్. అలాగే ప్రాక్టీస్ అని ఉంటుంది. మనం ఫిజిక్స్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తున్నాం ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఫిజిక్స్ ఓపెన్ చేస్తే అంటే ఎవ్రీ చాప్టర్కి మనం టెస్ట్ రాయొచ్చు ఫ్రెండ్స్. అంటే టాపిక్స్తోనన్నా రాయొచ్చు, లేకపోతే టోటల్ లెసన్ అన్న రాయొచ్చు ఫ్రెండ్స్. నేను the line joining the pole and the center of curvature of a minor is called the, నేను ఎగ్జాంపుల్ ప్రిన్సిపల్ సెక్షన్ అని పెట్టాను, సబ్మిటెడ్ కొట్టాను, రాంగ్ వచ్చింది. ప్రిన్సిపల్ యాక్సిస్ కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్. మనము ఇక్కడ సొల్యూషన్ కూడా చూసుకోవచ్చు ఫ్రెండ్స్. డెఫినేషన్: ప్రిన్సిపల్ యాక్సిస్ ఆఫ్ ఏ మిర్రర్ ఈజ్ డిఫైన్డ్ యాజ్ ఏ లైన్ జాయినింగ్ సెంటర్ ఆఫ్ కర్వేచర్ అండ్ పోల్ ఆఫ్ ఏ మిర్రర్. నెక్స్ట్ అని వస్తాను ఫ్రెండ్స్. వేరే ఇంకోటి క్వశ్చన్ కావాలంటే, రైట్ ట్రూ ఆర్ ఫాల్స్ ఆఫ్ ఈచ్ స్టేట్మెంట్. ఏ కాన్కేవ్ మిర్రర్ కవరేజ్ ద లైట్ రేస్ బట్ ఏ కాన్వెక్స్ మిర్రర్ డైవర్జెస్ దెమ్. ట్రూ. కరెక్ట్ అయింది ఫ్రెండ్స్, చూడండి. We can obtain a real enlarged and inverted image by concave mirror. False friends. అది రాంగ్ కదా ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఇప్పుడు సొల్యూషన్ ఇస్తారు ఫ్రెండ్స్ ఇక్కడ. When object is placed between C and F, real enlarged and inverted image is formed C by a concave mirror. ఇది ఇట్లా హెల్ప్ఫుల్ అవుతుంది ఫ్రెండ్స్. అలాగే మనం రాంగ్ ఆన్సర్ చెప్తే ఇక్కడ లైఫ్ లైన్ అనేది పోతుంది ఫ్రెండ్స్. ఒకవేళ కరెక్ట్ ఆన్సర్ చెప్తే మనకి 100% వస్తుంది. ఒకవేళ ఎవ్రీ వన్ రాంగ్ ఆన్సర్ పోతే లైఫ్ లైన్ అనేది పోతుంది ఫ్రెండ్స్, పర్సంటేజ్ అనేది పోతుంది ఫ్రెండ్స్. మీకు ఏమైనా డౌట్స్ ఉంటే కామెంట్లో రాసేయండి ఫ్రెండ్స్, మేము చెప్తాం ఫ్రెండ్స్. మీకు ఈ ఛానల్ నచ్చినట్టయితే లైక్ కొట్టండి, షేర్ కొట్టండి, సబ్స్క్రైబ్ చేయండి. థ్యాంక్ యూ ఫ్రెండ్స్.
You got, ooh, make it pop. Don't think about it, just
Bold new Datsun Ready Go. Price starts at rupees 2.83 lakhs. Test drive today.